Hey, Kyle is wonderful here again. This time with the Wonderful Wrestling Podcast, the weekly podcast that comes out every Friday. And this is mostly a recap of the week that was, a preview of the week that will be. I'll give my match of the week. We'll go through any big news that happened ever since the last podcast every Friday, like I said. And just a quick shout out on this channel, you can find WWE, which is Raw, SmackDown, NXT 2.0, Level Up, and NXT UK. You can also find all the AEW, Dynamite, and Rampage, all the New Japan shows, as well as NWA, MLW, Impact, and I think that's it. I might be missing something, but all of those shows I review individually on this channel. So I make it easier for everyone to find if they're not a fan of a particular show here and there. I do all the reviews usually right after or as soon as I can right after each show is finished. I come on live and I give my review and the recap of all the shows. So it this wrestling podcast, this wonderful wrestling podcast isn't really necessarily a recap or a review. I've done all those and they're all individually sorted. So definitely go check those out. And even if there's something you haven't been following, such as New Japan, you can go check those out and get all the latest news coming up for the big Forbidden Door pay-per-view this weekend. So this weekend is Forbidden Door, the cross-branded, cross-promoted between the two of the biggest promotions in the world, AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling, and that will be live in Chicago this Sunday. I'm really looking forward to that. So we got a lot of news coming out of that. Potentially, Forbidden Door is cursed. We will get into that, but at this point, I will explain how I think Forbidden Door has a curse hanging over it right now. And that will be some of our top news, but may as well just get right into it. The top news in the entire wrestling world. I touched on it last Wonderful Wrestling Podcast, but unfortunately, I did it early in the morning, and not long after I finished recording the podcast and putting it out live, the big news came out about Vince McMahon. So last time and last episode, we were the big news came out that Wednesday that Wall Street Journal had the front page news about Vince McMahon and an NDA that was signed with a woman that was a paralegal, and that NDA was for $3 million. She also had her pay raise from 100K to 200K, which for a paralegal is way over the normal pay. And trigger warning, she was then quote unquote passed around like a toy to John Laurinaitis, the right hand man of Vince McMahon. So not good. That's where we left off. Right after my podcast went live and was released, the news came out that Vince McMahon has not stepped down, but stepped back as CEO of WWE, leaving recently departed, taking a break only a month ago, and then got bad mouthed by the WWE officials and top brass on her way out. Stephanie McMahon has now taken over the interim CEO of WWE. Now, of course, Vince McMahon stayed on as head of creative. And so this is all the news that happened right after I released the podcast last week. Vince McMahon stepped back, not down, but back. Stephanie McMahon is in as interim CEO of WWE. Vince McMahon continues to run creative and do all the BS shows that he normally does. Not only that, it wasn't very long after on last Friday, after this news was released, it then was released that Mr. McMahon, not Vince McMahon, but Mr. McMahon will appear on SmackDown last week. So he started out and came out, Vince McMahon did, with his normal strut. The crowd was bowing and cheering him. So this was clearly we've seen it in certain rallies when someone in politics has something go wrong for them. They'll schedule a rally of all their people that think like-minded so that they can have a show of, look at, we're rallying the troops and stuff like that. So that's exactly what it was. It was propaganda from Vince McMahon rallying behind the troops of the minions of WWE loyalists that bowed at his feet. And he had then came out again on Raw, but on that was unannounced on Raw, Vince McMahon, but it was on SmackDown. It did get a little bit spike in the ratings. Of course, there was a big title match scheduled between Riddle and Roman. But the big news, everyone that wasn't even following wrestling all heard about Vince McMahon's troubles and how Stephanie McMahon took over. And then anybody that was following that story might have heard that, oh, he's going to be on SmackDown as well. So the ratings for SmackDown did slightly go up, and Vince McMahon just came out to say, then, now, forever together, most importantly together. And he basically left at that point. He might have said something else, but it was totally just like propaganda type deal, and potentially it was a saying goodbye. That's what I mentioned on the SmackDown review. It might have been Vince McMahon knowing that these are potentially the last time he could be on SmackDown or in Raw if everything turns south here. But I think he wanted to appear one last time. He didn't want to say goodbye. He's never a defeatist. If you remember in the podcast Vince McMahon had recently on the Pat McAfee show, Vince McMahon was saying that he loves a good fight. So Vince McMahon is not going to go down without a fight. He's going to fight this all the way, and I assume that he probably will remain in charge for a while. I don't know about the CEO stuff, but as far as the creative stuff, and of course, with Stephanie McMahon taking over the CEO spot, is it really just Vince McMahon's able to tell Stephanie what to do, or is Stephanie going to actually do stuff on her own? I highly doubt the latter. So I'm assuming Stephanie McMahon will just do anything that Vince McMahon tells her to do as CEO, as interim CEO. And Stephanie actually has no power, but we'll see how that goes. She could always go rogue. She does have Triple H in her ear, which news came out about that. We were all wondering, and as soon as it was announced on Friday that Stephanie McMahon was the interim CEO of WWE, the news came out that, or not the news, but that news came out, and then all the memes came out of Triple H walking back into NXT and getting rid of all the 2.0 color scheme and bringing back the black and gold, and there was meme after meme, and everybody hoping, and I saw tons of posts of, yeah, now can we get Triple H and Paul Heyman on creative? But of course, Vince McMahon was staying in creative, and Vince McMahon is probably just still CEO. He tells what Stephanie to do. But the news came out, I think it was only a couple days ago. John Pollock of Post Wrestling had sources close to NXT, which relayed a story that Triple H stormed into NXT on Wednesday and simply told the NXT roster, "I'm back." We don't know what that means. We don't know if he meant Triple H might have meant, oh, that was the first time he was back. I'm back. Or it might have meant that he's about to take over Powerrr. I'll believe it when I see it, even if the color scheme doesn't go back to black and gold and we still have the 2.0 attached to it. We'll know right away if Triple H starts doing creative on NXT or not, or if they make a couple signings from the independent scene, like potentially getting Blake Christian back, stuff like that. So if stuff like that happens, then we'll know Triple H is definitely in charge. So we don't have to wait for like the tune. But you never know. This wrestling world is crazy. We might tune in Tuesday for NXT 2.0, and all of a sudden we get the black and gold color scheme, and Triple H is the first one out. So we have no idea what to expect at this point. But going back to the legal matters, Vince McMahon now has 5 different firms investigating. The Wall Street Journal did note that more NDAs were discovered, and other irregularities were found throughout the books on Vince McMahon. So now he's got at least 5 different law firms on behalf of the shareholders. Because remember, if Vince McMahon was if WWE was a privately owned company, a lot of this mess wouldn't be quite a big a mess, or it might not even be public. But because it's a publicly traded company, anybody in a business with a publicly traded company has shareholders, the people that buy their stocks, to answer to. So we might definitely find more, because Vince McMahon has a ton of skeletons in his closet. We know all about the alleged covering up for Jimmy Snuka's murder of his girlfriend, allegedly, and Vince McMahon allegedly helping Pat Patterson and other people with a ring boy scandal, which included abuse. Um, Vince McMahon allegedly never passed out steroids to people and somehow got through the steroid trial of 93, 94, and all kinds of other stuff, including stuff we've seen play out on TV, such as the owner and head creator of everything that goes on TV also being a character, sure, that's good and fine. But then you have that character and you're also the owner and the person that writes everything, and you have all these sexy, beautiful women half naked doing your bidding on the air in front of national television, where we all seen Trish Stratus barking like a dog and stuff like that on her hands and knees for Vince. You can't tell me that that guy's not a creep when he's the one that's writing the story. So we all know Vince is a creep. We all know he's a shady businessman. He completely backstabbed his father as soon as he took over his father's company by going back on his word, and Vince McMahon Sr. didn't want Vince to compete against the other territories, and that's exactly what Vince McMahon did, all the way to having a monopoly. So we all know what we're dealing with when it comes to Vince. And when it comes to creative, he came out on Raw, and part of what he said was, well, we've been having Raw for 30 years, and 20 of those years have been dominated by one man, John Cena. And I mean, there's a lot of people that like Cena, but I also like look at that 20 years of Cena and how many people have dropped from the ratings. The ratings have gone down so much in that 20 years. It's not even funny. So um he just hangs on his laurels. We'll see what happens. But like I said, if Triple H shows up on NXT on Tuesday and kicks down the 2.0, then we'll know that maybe Vince doesn't have as much power as he does. But the first domino has already fallen. I think the news came out somewhere around Raw, so I think he got fired Monday, and that domino was um, Johnny Ace, John Laurinaitis, who was also named, remember, as being given that paralegal as a toy from Vince McMahon, and she took over as his personal assistant. And you know what kind of shady things that entails. And if you're wondering, with this whole like with the whole like giving her a raise from 100K to 200K and stuff like that, you got to remember that there's a reason that people that work in the same company aren't supposed to date or have um, marital affairs or anything like that. And especially the case if it's a boss and one of the employees. And the reason is, we don't know if this woman, this paralegal, was backed into a corner where she either loses her job and maybe finds it tough to find another job because they'll spread rumors about this woman being difficult and that's why she was fired, or she can go along with whatever sick, nasty, perverted games that Vince McMahon wanted her to do. Sure, she took the raise and eventually an NDA to shut up about it, but you got to remember, she could have like a sick child in the hospital where she desperately needs that money. This isn't a whole like, this isn't a streetwalker or like a sex worker type deal where she's taking money to do favors. No, she's saving her job. She might have kids in the hospital that we don't even know about, that she desperately needs this money. And like I said, it's not just that easy to go find another job. They're going to call a referral on WWE and see why she was fired. WWE can just spread the nastiest rumors they want to any employer that calls. So it's a touchy situation. You might, if you were thinking to yourself about, oh, that's not that big of a deal, and oh, well, she got paid for it, she didn't have to agree to taking the money. And yeah, she was given money, but like I said, she was going to go down to zero money, as in no longer being employed, and maybe finding it tough to find another job. So she could have lost her house. She could have lost everything if she lost that job that she wasn't planning on losing. And that's where the trouble lies. And of course, now then being given the role of assistant to this other guy, Vince's right hand man, and quote unquote passed around like a toy. I don't even want to imagine what that means. But you have your own idea what the frick that could mean. All in all, messy situation. I'm tired of Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon needs to go away. I like, just like everyone else, he's been like, you could definitely, he's a legend of the wrestling business, but he's also like done so much wrong for the wrestling business as well, and so much wrong for other people, and just getting away with like saying the N word on television in front of all kinds of people, including Booker T standing right in front of him. and just other all kinds of other BS that where this man thinks he's untouchable, and I'm over it. He somehow survived the Me Too movement, but now we know there's 100 NDAs with millions of dollars, and that's why nobody spoke out when the Me Too movement went about Vince McMahon. He covers his base as well. The only reason we found out about this one is a friend of the paralegal woman came forward with some evidence, and you can't necessarily say like, oh well, the woman went back on her NDA. She might have been telling this friend all about what was happening before the NDA was even an option. The woman probably, like I said, was put in a corner. It was either lose your job or take this money, and you know the rest. And then when she was completely done with it, that's when the NDA is signed. When she's like, I'm going to go forward to the authorities, then they throw her a couple $1 million. But in the meantime, the friend probably was told while she before the NDA was ever signed, and that's the only reason this came out. It was investigated, and all this evidence was found, and they're finding more and more as we go. And like I said, I'd much prefer other people to be running WWE. I don't. A lot of people have their dislike of Stephanie, and by proxy Triple H as well, because Triple H has to be dragged along to all of Stephanie's things, and Stephanie has to be dragged along to all of Vince's things. So technically, we don't know if Vince McMahon is out of the picture, and who knows? I'm not wishing and I'm not thinking it, but can you imagine Vince McMahon not with WWE? It's like how like a lot of people I know, like I've lost my grandparents, and what happens with like older people or like your grandparents, for instance, is when one passes, it's not too much longer that the other one passes, and it's that giant void left in their heart by having their spouse pass that um kind of takes them soon after as well. So kind of that same thing. Once Vince McMahon has WWE out of his life, we all know that he loves WWE much more than his wife Linda, much more than his son Shane, or even Stephanie. Almost more than life itself, Vince McMahon loves WWE. So I can't imagine that he would survive much longer without it. So when I say I want Vince McMahon gone, and I say that, it's not me wishing ill will of the health of Vince McMahon. Let me just get that straight. But I am pointing out that without WWE, Vince McMahon really is going to be, he won't even know what to do with himself. For like 30, 40 years, this man's gone out on 2 hours of sleep every night, just thinking about this business. And a lot of the backhanded and bad things that he done is what made him a lot of money and got him this powerful, and then to the point where he thinks he can do anything, and people like that and things like that need to stop in this world. And this might be one where we can stop. We don't know where it's going to go from there. Nick Khan seems to be suspect number one when it comes to who's leaking all this information. It could be Triple H, it could be Stephanie, it could be no one that we even know about. But Nick Khan, who took over on the business side for Vince McMahon a few years ago, Nick Khan is the one um, who's responsible for like the 180 released talent throughout the last couple of years because budget cuts and all that. So which kind of had everybody thinking that it looked like WWE were on maybe thinking about selling the company off. The prime candidate being Disney, who's been buying everything such as Marvel and Star Wars. So I definitely think we're even closer to the path of Disney owning WWE, and who knows what that would entail. You might have to go back to the old WCW stories from like Jim Herd about people not familiar with the business. They're only familiar with like TV and stuff like that, coming in and running creative in the business side of wrestling. And that was a disaster. He famously wanted Ric Flair, who had already been multi time world champion. He wanted Ric Flair to be completely cut his hair off and be renamed Spartacus. That's the kind of things you might be looking at with a Disney sale, but it could be good in the long run. If somebody say that Disney does do that kind of thing that Jim Herd, then they might realize their problems and bring someone in like a Paul Heyman, like a Triple H, people that we've seen creatively do well in the WWE system, but they've always had Vince McMahon ruling above them. So stuff like that might happen. We'll just have to wait and see. We'll take it day by day, and we'll see if We'll see if Vince shows up on SmackDown tonight. So it's been exactly 1 week since he stepped down stepped back, not down, from CEO of WWE. And like I said, he's still head of creative, but he's shown up on SmackDown last week and Raw this week. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him out there yet again on another SmackDown. But I do have a feeling he probably won't be there, and that he was mainly like the big rally to the troops, like I mentioned in the beginning, but also B, he might have wanted to say goodbye to SmackDown and Raw and being on air one last time on both shows. So again, we'll just have to wait and see. I don't think I mentioned it, but the first domino fell on Monday night. It was John Laurinaitis fired and released, and then Bruce Pritchard. If Laurinaitis was Vince's right hand man, then Bruce Pritchard is Vince's left hand man, if you want to put it that way. So Bruce Pritchard, who supposedly has been like writing all of this NXT 2.0 stuff and also a lot of the creative on Raw and SmackDown, is now not only going to be that, but also taking over John Laurinaitis' job for the time being as head of talent relations. The head of talent relations is like the key person that talks to the wrestlers and then goes and talks to like Vince McMahon and the rest of the creative. So he's the mediator. So now you've got the person that writes the show and directs the show is now also the mediator between creative. So lead me to think that Bruce Pritchard probably isn't going to have enough time now to write and have it be so hands-on with NXT 2.0. I do believe that he's been writing NXT 2.0 while not even being in the Performance Center or the CWC. I think he just is in the WWE office or at home. So uh, definitely makes me think that Triple H could possibly be taking back over NXT, and that's why we got the I'm back a couple days ago. And I know a lot of people, including me, are excited because NXT Black and Gold really ignited a lot of our passion for pro wrestling again. We kind of went from there to, or at least me, I went from like NXT Black and Gold reuniting my passion in like 2014 to then me going into New Japan and watching that for the first time. And the rest is history with all the things I watch now. So I was always like a TNA fan. I watched ROH here and there, and I watched WCW Nitro at the same time as Raw back in the day. So I've always been the type to watch multiple promotions at the same time, but truly like Black and Gold really ignited like that passion for great wrestling and a demand for great wrestling again. So I know that, and I've been on record for saying that basically the Black and Gold NXT fire still burns. It's just burning over in AEW. AEW definitely has the heart of NXT Black and Gold, especially now that they've got William Regal there, as well as the Undisputed Era, among other people. But not just the people, just the spirit of Black and Gold was also the spirit of AEW. So all of that kind of came to a head along with all the New Japan stuff, like the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega doing their work over there and forming Bullet Club. So AJ Styles was part of that. And of course, Fergal Devitt, Prince Devitt, aka Finn Balor. So just all these guys like Finn Balor, also a big part of Black and Gold and stuff like that. So it's all interconnected. And AEW, that's why I'm so excited for this AEW New Japan show on Sunday. It's really just like a collection of that spirit of professional wrestling. And the reason I still watch like Raw and SmackDown, if you're wondering, is I'm such a fan of wrestlers and following wrestlers' careers and their journey and their story arc of wrestling, whether they whatever promotion they're in. So there's just too many people that are still left in WWE that I care about, and there's going to continue to be people that I care about, such as maybe an MJF, who I've become such a big fan of, potentially MJF going to WWE. So there's no reason to truly ever stop watching. And for me as a wrestling nerd and stuff, it's just like independent music. When your favorite indie band signs with a major record deal and now they sound a little bit different. Perfect example is Shinsuke Nakamura. He was even able to do some of his New Japan type stuff in NXT Black and Gold, but when he's on the main roster, he's not doing any of that stuff. But at the same time, you could look at it as, well, Shinsuke finally got the huge money deal after breaking his body down for so many years in New Japan, where now he can get that huge money and he doesn't have to kill his body night in and night out. He can wrestle the WWE style. So that's another thing to think about, because you can think about it this way. If you're where do you most see all the most insane, crazy dives and chair shots and flaming stuff? It's the independent scene, the very low independent scene, where it's mostly guys that you've never heard of. Maybe they look like they're barbers and plumbers and stuff during the day, and then they go wrestle death matches or small independent shows during the night. And it's not just those guys, it's also up to like an AJ Styles doing insane things and probably hurting his body in stuff like NWA Wildfire before he even got the TNA. So that's kind of what I'm talking about, where they're going to do insane moves to get over and get recognized in the business. The more money you make, the less insane crap you have to do per se. So all the way up to, excuse me, if you get the huge money deal in WWE, then you really made it and you can really rest on your laurels. Now, of course, another example is when Bryan Danielson turned into Daniel Bryan and had the rest of the WWE style. It definitely wasn't the same, and of course he wasn't winning best technical wrestler in the Wrestling Observer anymore. Uh, but it's the very year that Bryan Danielson returned to the independents, aka AEW. Not that they're an independent, but just outside of the WWE realm. Bryan Danielson won the best technical wrestler of the year again. So it's just kind of a balance of, but that doesn't mean like, if you were an American Bryan Danielson fan, would you have wanted to miss like his whole world title run at WrestleMania 30, even if you're not a fan of WWE? So that's kind of how I think about it. But um, let's kind of move away from all that Vince news and like I said, I hope we see Triple H taking over NXT, but I'm not going to hold my breath. And let's go into what I was talking about at the beginning of the show. Forbidden Doors this Sunday, and it seemingly is cursed. There is a curse over the Forbidden Door pay-per-view. Let's go back to the first match that was announced for Forbidden Door was CM Punk versus um, Tanahashi, and before that week was even over, CM Punk injured his right foot, broke something in his foot, had to not relinquish the title, but he will have to go to surgery at that point, and now it's going to be a new person to fight Tanahashi, which ended up being Jon Moxley. Of course, that's going to be the main event on the Forbidden Door, but the curse does not end there. Oh no. Let's go through well, let's just go with the latest ones that were released today. Uh Tomohiro Ishii was supposed to be part of the four-way match for the first ever All Atlantic AEW champion. News out today that Tomohiro Ishii cannot perform in that match. He is injured. He injured his knee. I'm not quite sure when, but he did have one of my matches of the week in the semifinal match on Monday. So in the finals, he beat Ishii beat Clark Connors, but in the semifinals, he fought against Kanemaru, and that match was insane. One of my favorite matches of the entire week. And in this match against Kanemaru, it was kind of working over the knee a little bit. So I was thinking when Clark Connors was going to fight Ishii the next night, that Clark Connors was going to target that knee, because it was clearly like hurting Ishii in that semifinals. Well, if you go back to my review on Tuesday's event for New Japan Road, where Tomohiro Ishii fought Clark Connors, I noted that it was really weird that Clark Connors never worked on the knee. The story from the match before, the night before, was Ishii's knee. Well, now it all makes sense. The reason that Clark Connors wasn't working over the knee is that I think Ishii injured his knee in the semifinals and worked the finals hurt. Of course, they still gave Ishii the win in a singles match over Clark Connors. They're not even really on the same level at all when it comes to New Japan Pro Wrestling. But so that was always going to be an Ishii win. But I did, because of not going after the knee, I think he was already wrestling injured. Now the news has come out. Clark Connors will be at Forbidden Door. And Clark Connors was the only 1 out of 10 people in this qualifying round that was American, and it just happened to be over on the New Japan side. So we do have an American representative in the All Atlantic title match. It'll be Miro versus um, Malachi Black. Miro, Malachi Black, Pac, and now it'll be Clark Connors. Ishii is out and injured, but I can tell you from watching these matches with Clark Connors over the last couple days and his run in the Best of the Super Juniors all month long before that, he is going to be a great addition to this match. We're not going to get the Miro Ishii stuff that we wanted at Forbidden Door. That was going to be great, but having Clark Connors in it is going to make it more of a well-rounded match. So if you've never seen Clark Connors, you guys are in for a treat. He kind of has a cowboy gimmick, and he almost looks like he could be Hangman's little brother. But he also comes out to like gangster rap music and dancing to it like that. So he's just kind of a cool guy. Also, kind of looks like Matthew McConaughey. Just a little side note. But this is all me talking about Forbidden Door being cursed. So I started with the CM Punk. The first match announced CM Punk Tanahashi. CM Punk out with an injury. Then I just gave you the latest news. Ishii is out of the fatal four-way match. Also found out today, Kyle O'Reilly, he wasn't scheduled for a Forbidden Door match, but that is because he indeed is injured. He must have injured himself on that night where he had the Battle Royal and then fought John Moxley in a really intense match. So probably somewhere in that Moxley O'Reilly match, Kyle injured something. We weren't told what the injury was or how long he'll be out. So hopefully Kyle O'Reilly's not out too long. If you remember on Rampage, they also wrote out Bobby Fish, his partner in Red Dragon. So that one was more storyline. Sting and Darby Allin were getting revenge for the injury on Sting. So they took him out with a chair on the leg. So it looks like Red Dragon are going to be out of action for a little bit. Red Dragon were veterans of New Japan Pro Wrestling, and I could have definitely seen them potentially supposed to be part of a match before the injury happened. Um, there's yet more injuries though. If you watch Dynamite, you saw the big match, the money match, the dream match that would have made this whole Forbidden Door worth it no matter what else happened on the card. Zack Sabre Jr. versus Bryan Danielson is a no-go. Bryan Danielson got injured in the Anarchy in the Arena match at the Double or Nothing pay-per-view event. And man, it still could be a pretty good card, and it sounds like we'll get that match eventually. But it was official. That match was supposed to happen. Bryan Danielson is going to be out of the Blood and Guts match, which is next week as well. And unfortunate on that. But the big news coming out of that is Bryan Danielson said there is a new member of the Blackpool Combat Club who will then fight Zack Sabre Jr. in a great technical match at Forbidden Door. And then he's also going to be brutal enough to take it to Jericho and company in the Blood and Guts. So everybody's first guess, my first guess, and I'm assuming everybody's favorite for who he's talking about, Bryan Danielson left us wondering, and it indeed is going to be a mystery. And everybody's guess is Cesaro. Cesaro has been a free agent for a while now, and he definitely fits the bill as far as big enough name. Cesaro is definitely a big enough name to market as a surprise. So you can't have the surprise be like Davey Richards, like Impact had at Slammiversary. Everybody's going to be upset. Remember the last surprise we got with the lights out? It was Satnam Singh, who we've never even seen before. So it can't be anybody like that. I know some people are throwing around names like Jonathan Grisham, who, yes, I would love to see a Jonathan Grisham versus Zack Sabre Jr. match, but you damn well know everybody's going to groan and complain about, oh, Grisham's the surprise guy. So it basically leaves you with two options. It's either going to be Cesaro or Johnny Wrestling, Johnny Gargano. Those are your two options, in my opinion. And maybe there's something out of left field that we've never heard about. But the way that Bryan Danielson was talking about it makes me believe that he basically said like he's going to do great things in AEW or something along those lines, which makes me think it's not like Lee Moriarty or anybody like that. It's not Dante Martin or anybody that's currently on the AEW roster. He clearly made it sound like it's someone new to the roster. Oh, Samoa Joe was another guess for, because you got to think it's someone that can join the Blackpool Comic Club. It's someone that can have a technical wrestling match. It's someone that can have a brawling kind of match, and it's also a big enough name that it's not going to be a disappointment. So I'm thinking Cesaro for sure. Johnny Gargano could be a good second choice. There might be some other names out there, but Cesaro would be a great choice. And did you think the injuries were done with yet? Because I think there's even more. Let me just go through the cards. So let me just look real quick. No, that might be it for the major injuries here, but we've had even more injuries. Like NXT UK, I watched yesterday. Their tag team champions who just won the titles had to relinquish Ashton Smith and Oliver Carter, and they had to relinquish the titles. So just so many things going on. Matt Cardona had his own themed pay-per-view for NWA, where Matt Cardona, the former Zack Ryder, was the National Wrestling Alliance heavyweight champion, the NWA champ, had his own pay-per-view named Always Ready, and then he got injured. And pretty much the same day that Cody, CM Punk both had to go get surgery, Matt Cardona also got surgery on a torn bicep. So just the injury bug is really, really out there right now. But let's just quickly, while we're talking about Forbidden Door here, go through the card as it is right now. And the pre-show match looks pretty good. It's going to be Max Caster teaming up with the Three Guns. So Billy is included. Max Caster, Billy, Austin, and Colton. And they'll take on Yuya Uemura, Alex Coughlin, the DKC, and Kevin Knight. All four of these out of the New Japan Los Angeles dojo. They also have a weekly television show that they're all featured on called NJPW Strong. I also reviewed those shows on this channel, so go and check those out. But that should be a good opening match in the pre-show. Then we've got the main event, of course, Jon Moxley versus Hiroshi Tanahashi. Definitely it's not 100% that Moxley wins in my mind. Sure, Tanahashi's a long shot, especially when you consider G1, the big month-long tournament in New Japan, the biggest tournament in the world, starts in only a couple weeks and goes all the way until about August 18th or August 20th, which Tanahashi is part of, which means Tanahashi wouldn't be around whatsoever. I suppose you could have Tanahashi beat Moxley for the interim title, but Tanahashi would probably have to lose the title to someone in the next 3 weeks. So I don't see that happening. And the other big thing that came out of Dynamite, or one of the other big things, Kazuchika Okada did make an appearance, and they didn't make a big deal out of it. We only found out later when Excalibur was quickly running through his things, and he kept talking like this, and it was lasted for like 3 minutes. But somewhere in all of that, it was announced it's a four-way match for the IWGP World Heavyweight title. Jay White, the champion, who just won it from Okada about 3 weeks ago, is going to defend against Okada, Hangman Page, and Adam Cole. So that's going to be a crazy match. A lot of the purists are out there, like especially the New Japan fans, are like, oh, like four-way match for the title, because they don't really have like three-way or four-way matches for titles, especially the world title in New Japan very often. So they're complaining about that a little bit. I'm cool with that. It should be a great match. We pretty much all assume that Jay White isn't going to lose the title three weeks after gaining it. So another one where we know the winner, but just enjoy the ride. That's kind of how it goes when you have these cross promoted shows. Is you just gotta watch the matches for what they are and not really worry about who wins as much. I know that's kind of counterproductive to the way a lot of people like to watch their wrestling. Winners really matter to a lot of people. To me, I can definitely watch things knowing who the winner's going to be or stuff like that. One of the other big matches, like I said, Ishii is out. Clark Connors is in. It'll be Clark Connors, Malachi Black, Miro, and Pac for the All Atlantic Championship, AEW All Atlantic Championship, the first ever. So a lot of people weren't too excited to add another singles men's title, especially when we'd rather have the men's trios title, the six-man tag title, and maybe even the women's tag championship over another singles men's title. We've already got the TNT title for the singles. Apparently what Tony Khan was thinking is he wants one more so for the international stars, which really I can see why this now either gives Miro or Malachi Black. Those are my two picks to win. Miro or Malachi Black a championship to hold when they probably weren't going to hold the other ones right now. So I get it, but it just adds yet another title when we've already got these ROH titles. And now that we had this whole month of New Japan stuff, we were seeing IWGP titles and Rev Pro title was out there. So just too many titles right now. We probably didn't need this All Atlantic title. And yeah, this match was hit by the injury bug as well with the Ishii injury. Another one of the big marquee matches, it's Les Sex Gods teaming up Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara with Minoru Suzuki of all people, and they'll have Ty Conti with them. They'll take on Eddie Kingston, Wheeler Yuta, and Shota Umino. If you don't know who Shota Umino is, that is the son of head referee of New Japan Pro Wrestling Red Shoes. And Chris Jericho famously beat up Shota Umino right in front of Red Shoes, the referee, his own father, back when Chris Jericho was in New Japan. So funny stuff on that originally. Cool that Shota gets to try and get his comeback or his payback here so many years later. And that's going to be a fun match, especially with Suzuki out there. Will Ospreay is going to defend the IWGP United States Heavyweight title against Orange Cassidy. With this one, the rumors are that it was originally supposed to be Will Ospreay versus Andrade El Idolo, but then an edict came from New Japan, straight from New Japan's partners, longtime partners, CMLL, that anybody associated with, well, not really anybody, but in particular Penta, Obscuro, Ray, Phoenix, and Andrade El Idolo are banned from showing up at the Forbidden Door pay-per-view, as they all have ties to the AAA promotion. There are other people that in AEW that have ties to the AAA promotion, such as Matt Hardy was just in their main event last weekend. But it seems to be only the Mexicans that have ties to AAA were not wanted. And this show where CMLL is the big rivals, the eternal rivals of AAA down in Mexico. So unfortunate there for Andrade. He got taken out of this match with Will Ospreay. Orange Cassidy gets the call up. Probably not my first pick or my second pick, but the now that we saw the preview match on the 6-man tag on Dynamite, I could definitely say this match is going to be really good. Of course, Will Ospreay can have a good match with just about anybody, and we know Orange Cassidy, when he's not doing the comedy character stuff, can actually wrestle. So I'm interested to see where that one goes. I'm assuming Will Ospreay retains his United States title that he just won a couple weeks ago. But there is a side story. If you don't know, Juice Robinson was the United States champion, but he had emergency appendicitis, got his appendix removed, and he couldn't make the New Japan Dominion show a couple weeks ago. They stripped. It was supposed to be a 3-way match, including Will Ospreay and Sonata, with Juice Robinson defending, but they stripped Juice Robinson since he had appendicitis and was stuck in the USA. They stripped Juice Robinson the United States title, made Will Ospreay versus Sonata a singles match for the championship. Will Ospreay won that 3 weeks ago, and since Juice Robinson had the title in America, New Japan did not have a backup title or even a replica, and Will Ospreay won a title without being awarded the title belt. And Will Ospreay to this day does not have the title belt. Just a few days ago, Juice Robinson put out another video, so he's been doing a lot of good work on social media. Juice Robinson has, and if you don't know, recently Juice Robinson turned heel and joined Bullet Club. So he had just joined Bullet Club and won the United States title, but got it taken away from him only because he had appendicitis. So, long story short, we might see Juice Robinson at Forbidden Door because he's the one that still holds the U.S. title, the actual physical belt, and claims that he's the actual champion. So whoever wins this match, I could see Orange, since it is the United States title, and because G1 is about to happen, they don't necessarily need IWGP doesn't necessarily need their singles titles while G1 is happening. So I could see NJPW and IWGP being okay with the United States title being defended and held on AEW television while G1 happens. So that's what makes me think Orange Cassidy could win this title, and maybe we'll go into a Juice Robinson Orange Cassidy feud on Dynamite in the next couple of weeks. Something like that could happen. So if there's one title from IWGP that could change hands over to an AEW guy and appear on Dynamite next week, I think it could be the United States title for sure. In the other one, this is the other one where we could potentially have an IWGP title on Dynamite, and that's because it's winner take all for the ROH title and the IWGP heavyweight title, tag title. It's FTR versus United Empire's Great O'Khan and Jeff Cobb versus Roppongi Vice, Trent Beretta, and Rocky Romero. So one of these titles is changing hands since it's winner take all, one fall to a finish. I could definitely see FTR or Roppongi Vice winning the IWGP tag titles, or I could see Great O'Khan and Jeff Cobb getting the ROH titles to go with their already won IWGP Heavyweight tags. So this one's a true toss-up. It's like 33% for each team, maybe 1% that there's a no contest. Maybe some other really big tag team comes out and ruins everything, and we have no contest. But um, I could see FTR winning the IWGP tag titles. Probably, when you think about it, have just as much of a chance as Orange Cassidy does to win the US title. Does FTR to win the IWGP Heavyweight tag titles? Again, G1's coming up, so the tag titles or titles in general aren't really a priority in New Japan Pro Wrestling while G1 is happening. And actually, Great O'Khan and Jeff Cobb, despite being IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Champions, are both part of G1, which is a singles tournament. But like I said, the tournament lasts from the middle of July until the middle of August. So potentially the United States title and the heavyweight tag titles could be left in America and on Dynamite and Rampage for a couple months here. So we'll have to see if it like if it was any other time of the year, the odds would be super low. But since I keep saying with the G1, there's not going to really be title defenses while they're all in a big group tournament for an entire month. So the only match on the card featuring all AEW talent is Thunder Rosa defending the AEW Women's World Title against Toni Storm. And the reason for this being um, all AEW is there is no women division in New Japan Pro Wrestling. There is a partnership between New Japan Pro Wrestling and Stardom, who is one of the greatest all women's wrestling organizations going in the world. Josie Pro would have something to say about that, but um, I definitely wish I had more time to get into Stardom. That would definitely be, if I could add something more, that would be what I add. But since it's not Stardom, isn't a part of this co-promoted pay-per-view, it's going to be all AEW. And this is another toss-up to me. It's 50-50. I haven't had any faith in AEW keeping the title on Rosa since they really haven't shown her that much respect or let her go out there and talk much or really given her much for storylines. So I even thought I didn't even have much faith that Thunder Rosa was going to retain against Marina Shafir a couple of weeks ago on Dynamite. That's how low my faith is. But Thunder Rosa could retain or Toni Storm could win the title here. So 50-50 for me. And Toni Storm is the girlfriend and lives with Juice Robinson. If you guys were wondering, what, like I was saying, I think Juice Robinson might show up to the show, and which would make sense if Toni Storm is going to win the world title. Juice Robinson would definitely, if he's healed from his appendicitis, which I think he is. Juice Robinson would want to be in the building to see Toni Storm win the title. So maybe that's a reason to maybe switch it in 55% Toni Storm, 45 Thunder Rosa, if you think of it that way. We get a big 8-man tag. We were wondering coming in the Dynamite, well, what the heck are the Young Bucks going to do? They had just won they're now the Young Bucks are the first ever 2-time AEW World Tag Team titles, champions, and they will not be defending the titles at the pay-per-view. Instead, they will be what they are saying for one night only, joining the Bullet Club again. So it looks like that's going to be amazing. I think we're going to get Matt and Nick Jackson coming out in full Bullet Club gear with the old music and throwing up the two sweets and acting like super, even more so than usual, cocky pricks. And it's going to be amazing. So they're saying for one night only, Matt Jackson, Nick Jackson, the Young Bucks back in Bullet Club. They'll team up with Hikuleu, who we saw in Dynamite not that long ago. The 6'10" son of Haku and the brothers of the Gorillas of Destiny. And then they'll team up with El Phantasmo, who, if you have never seen El Phantasmo, who's part of Bullet Club and really good junior heavyweight in New Japan, also has been featured on Impact this year. You guys are in for a treat if you've never seen El Phantasmo. El Phantasmo was just in the Best of the Super Juniors tournament, which is basically the junior heavyweight version of the G1. And they now invited El Phantasmo to the actual G1 as well. So El Phantasmo in both of the monthly long tournaments for New Japan, he's been doing good so well this year. And they'll take on what they weirdly and hilariously named the Dudes with Attitudes. It'll be Darby Allin, Sting, and Los Ingobernables de Japon's LIJ members, Shingo Takagi and Hiromu Takahashi. So Shingo and Hiromu teaming with Darby and Sting. What a crazy matchup. The dudes with attitudes, and they'll take on the Young Bucks, El Phantasmo and Hikuleo. So that's just going to be like your fun match. That match isn't going to be taken too serious. I'm sure we'll see some crazy moves in that match. Sting's bound to do something crazy. Um, just think about all the cool stuff that the Young Bucks are going to do with Hiromu and Shingo. So definitely looking forward to that. Zack Sabre Jr. in the last match listed is against TBA to be determined. Like I was mentioning, I could definitely see Zack Sabre Jr. fighting Cesaro. But Wrestling Johnny Gargano is probably the other second best bet. And while we're speaking about bets, that's a good transition back over to WWE. I saw earlier today that What Culture was talking about the betting odds are out. I don't know I don't know if it's like Paddy Power or what it was, but the odds for the Royal Rumble are out. And no surprise to anybody, Cody Rhodes is the favorite to win the men's Money in the Bank. The men's Royal Rumble, and we're not even at the midpoint of the year, so we're not even. It's more than 6 months away from the Royal Rumble, so it should be plenty of time for Cody Rhodes to return by then. That's pretty much what everybody thinks will be his return date, and then if he is able to return by then, he will win the Royal Rumble. So the number one overall top pick for the odds anyway is Cody Rhodes, and I'm sure that'll happen as long as there's no setbacks on the injuries. Number 2 on the odds was The Rock. Remember, um, that could be an option, especially if Cody Rhodes is injured, and I'm assuming Roman Reigns will still have at least the Universal title, if not both. And they've been wanting to set up a Roman Reigns Rock match as long as The Rock's schedule is free. So at WrestleMania. So having The Rock show up at the Royal Rumble unannounced would be a crazy, crazy thing to happen. And him winning it, I know a lot of people would complain. Again, another part timer coming in and winning the Royal Rumble, just like Ronda Rousey and Brock Lesnar last year. But not that Ronda's a part timer right now. Well, I guess she kind of is. But that's not really her fault. They fired everybody else on the SmackDown division, so there's nobody to wrestle. Anyway, for the betting odds on the women's side, number one, this one's a little closer. There's no surefire favorite like there is with Cody Rhodes, and then The Rock was also far ahead of. I didn't even see who was number 3, but um, on the women's side of the Royal Rumble, the betting odds at this early date have Becky Lynch as the favorite, of course, and then Bayley as the number 2. I can't wait for Bayley to return. Hopefully, Bayley. I guess probably. Man, I was really hoping Bayley could get in time, be back in time for the Money in the Bank, but I'm pretty sure Becky Lynch is going to get. There's right now, as of right now, only one. Well, there's 2 spots remaining in the Money in the Bank. Tonight we'll find out on SmackDown who gets the second to last spot between Shotzi and Aaliyah, and I'm almost certain it'll be Shotzi because Shotzi thrives in the hardcore ladder match type of environment. So Shotzi could potentially become a big star at Money in the Bank, which is only a couple weeks away now. It's on July 2nd. So a week from Saturday, a week from tomorrow. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It should be a good Money in the Bank pay-per-view. Of course, they moved it from. Oh no, I didn't going back to the women's, Charlotte Flair was the third. So a lot of basically Becky, the 3 remaining 4 horsewomen. I still can't believe Sasha Banks is gone, but good for her. And no news on the Sasha Banks stuff this week. Basically, we still don't know if she's officially released, but we're all assuming that she is, and it's going to be announced at any point now. I think maybe even some of the reports said she is released. I'm still not quite sure on that, but I'll believe it when I see it. And hopefully I heard one rumor, or at least someone saying Sasha should go start her own women's wrestling company, which I would definitely be down to watch that because she's a superstar. But anyway, um, yeah, Money in the Bank should be pretty good. Of course, they moved it from the stadium where the Las Vegas Raiders play into the arena where the Las Vegas Golden Knights play. Much, much smaller. I think it dropped from 60,000 capacity to about 15 or 12,000. and they were able to sell that out because they had already sold. So everybody that bought tickets, I think what happened is they had sold like they were nowhere near 60, but they were at like 18, 20,000, and then they moved to a 12,000, and so there's at least like 6,000, 5,000 people that had bought tickets that were no longer able to get tickets since they moved venues. So it's not very often that we see them having to switch venues. It harkens back to WrestleMania 7, where they were supposed to be held in the LA Forum, the Los Angeles Coliseum, I mean, and a whole controversy came, or at least they say, oh, well, if you look back, it was when the Gulf War was happening. So even Super Bowl that year was they had they could only have the Super Bowl that year from fears of attacks. Um, if they had a full military presence with planes in the sky and everything, since WWE wasn't going to be able to fit the bill on that, they were never going to hold the stadium show. Where they also said, oh well, there was safety concerns, and that's kind of maybe what they were talking about. But the other the other coin is that they just weren't selling out enough. It was Sergeant Slaughter who had turned heel and had been an Iraqi sympathizer, and now the Iraqi war, the first one, the Persian Gulf War, kicked off for real, and now they've got a like real life thing on their hands where it really nobody was buying it. Like he was getting booed, of course, but really they were just mad at like the whole situation, and that one got moved to a small arena, but it doesn't happen often. But one of the things we were hearing that Nick Khan, the guy that was taking over the business side of WWE, wanted to run more and more stadium shows. So we were supposed to have it was Money in the Bank here in the stadium show. Then of course we've got a stadium show for SummerSlam, which got moved all the way up to the end of July. So July 30th, we've got a stadium show at SummerSlam, and we found out on SmackDown it's going to be Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns yet again in the main event for the unified WWE Universal title, which I can't believe that they didn't pull the trigger on a Bobby Lashley feud or a Seth Rollins feud. Now, most people assume that on the men's side of things, Seth Rollins will win the Money in the Bank, and maybe he could even win the title at SummerSlam or something like that in a replay of WrestleMania 32. Or 31, my bad. And probably the most famous cash in, making the WrestleMania main event a triple threat out of nowhere. So the thing about it this time is the match at SummerSlam is as a last man standing match. I don't think a last man standing match can be a triple threat match unless you either a when if Seth cashes in during the match, it becomes a elimination style last man standing match, or B, it becomes just a regular rules. It no longer is a last man standing match, or just Seth cashes in after the match is over with, or he doesn't even cash in at all. So again, we'll just have to wait and see on that one. But that's what a lot of people think because nobody wants to see a freaking Roman Reigns Brock Lesnar match yet again. But I think WWE panicked when they had such bad luck trying to sell out the stadium show for the Money in the Bank that they didn't want two disastrous stadium shows in a single month. So they called in Brock Lesnar when Cody went down with the injury. Of course, maybe they could have pulled the trigger on having Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns, or they could have had Cody Rhodes win the Money in the Bank and then say, I want to fight you at SummerSlam. I'm cashing in my Money in the Bank for a SummerSlam match. So that maybe could have been what we would have got. But once Cody was out of the picture, Brock Lesnar was the only one they trusted to sell a stadium show. Apparently, that tells us that they didn't trust Bobby Lashley versus Roman Reigns to sell out a stadium show. To me, I don't know who would buy tickets just because it's going to be Brock Lesnar and Roman again. To me, they either already would have bought tickets because it's SummerSlam in general, or they wouldn't have. Like, who really does that really work? Even though we've seen it 20 times now, are you that excited? Like, oh, Brock Lesnar's going to be there now. I better buy the ticket. Like, sure, having Brock Lesnar on the card in general is exciting than having him not. So, like, you're excited to see Brock Lesnar, but are you really excited to see him in a match that you've seen on TV 20 other times? So, and it's also really awkward because they really made it seem like by taglining WrestleMania with "This is the greatest WrestleMania main event of all time," which is of course was hyperbole, but um, their point was that this was going to be like the end of the chapter of the many chapters of Brock versus Reigns, and Reigns basically won conclusively. There's no like doubt that he beat Brock Lesnar straight up, and I thought we could move on with our lives, and maybe Brock's next opponent would be like Gable Steveson or something like that. But nope, we're right back to Brock having to get called up during his summer vacation. Can you come on in, pal? We'll throw you a couple $1,000,000 if you can run this SummerSlam show. It's just ridiculous. Who really wants to see that match again? Poor Bobby Lashley. If you remember, if you were here for my Hell in the Cell review, I just said there was two major stars that came out of tonight. Of course, one of them was Cody Rhodes, who will go down as a legend for that Hell in the Cell pay-per-view. And the other one that came out looking like a huge star was Bobby Lashley. If you remember, I said, if you're over as a babyface, especially a big, muscly babyface in the city of Chicago, then that means you can get cheers in anywhere in the world, whether it be London, England, Alabama, LA. Like, if you're getting cheered as a big, muscly babyface in Chicago, you're getting cheered in everywhere in the planet. But apparently, WWE does not have enough faith to fill the Nashville Stadium with Bobby Lashley as the marquee name. That's just sad. It's really just sad. Like, what are we even doing here? Are we spinning our wheels so what's going to happen at WrestleMania if The Rock says no? Are we getting Brock versus Reigns yet again? Are you ever going to create another star? Are we getting Reigns as champion for 10 more years, or is he going to go to Hollywood and that plan is foiled? So now you got to find a new star. Maybe it's Gable Steveson. But who knows? It's really just tiring, and that's part of the reason why I really do hope Vince McMahon gets out of the way with the creative. We can get someone like a Triple H, Paul Heyman, Jim Cornette, a team of the three of them with a couple other guys, and just pile out some great wrestling. Man, they got billions of dollars behind them. They could do anything they want. They can have laser light shows and all the biggest stuff, and they could be filling out a stadium show every month if they really got popular and did things right and all that. And they could have a stadium show in Manila, Philippines 1 month, and they could have a stadium show in Tokyo, Japan the next month, and a stadium show in London the next month. Like, I don't understand why WWE isn't that, with all the money and the bigness they've done and all the things they've done, why that isn't a thing yet. Um, that they couldn't like make a whole bunch of stars and really just like write some cool storylines. And it doesn't have to be like convoluted storylines like Lucha Underground, like even though I would love that kind of wrestling. But if you can find some kind of, like, literally Raw and SmackDown are just copy and paste for year after year after year. Now we're on decades of copy and paste last week's and copy and paste last week's, which was a copy of the last week of the previous week, and so on and so forth for a decade, where all you do is copy and paste and change around a few names, but the format remains the same. And something has to give. Yes, I get it. They do all this stuff because they make billions after billions of dollars, and they continue to make record profit numbers off of their television deals and their Saudi Arabia deals and streaming service deals with Peacock and on Fox Network and stuff like that. All adds up to over like $2 billion just from that alone. And now they don't even have to really worry about if they sell out tickets and stuff like that. But they're trying to do that as well with the new stadium show, running more stadium shows. Apparently, that's not working out because they have a terrible product. They're not making stars. That's why we had to go call Brock Lesnar yet again. And I love Brock Lesnar, but I don't want to see him lose the Roman Reigns again. And if Brock Lesnar wins, well, then where do we go from there? We're still stuck in the same spot. Who's going to be able to beat Brock? Roman Reigns. So then what do we? Just means we get Roman Reigns versus Brock yet again. At what Survivor Series? Now that the champions aren't going to fight the champions because Reigns has them both. Like, oh my gosh. So we'll see what happens with the briefcases. I assume that WWE is going to give the women's one to Lacey Evans. I think that's her name, but I just don't like Lacey Evans. So I hope that doesn't happen, but I could definitely see them doing that. But maybe a Raquel. I think Raquel's in it. Or maybe it's just Becky Lynch. So that one's a little bit more in the air. I think the men's one will go to Seth Rollins, but you never know. They could give it to like Omos or something, bro. Speaking of bro, Riddle had a tough fight, really good match against Reigns last week on Smackdown in a losing effort. Of course, Reigns wasn't giving up those titles, although they could have pulled the trigger there. And I think like they should have made it only for the WWE title, and Riddle could have won the Raw title and taken that back to Raw, and then we could have had the two titles again. I was fine with combining the titles, and I'm cool with only having one world champion, but I didn't know Roman Reigns was going to take like the entire summer off and never show up on Raw. I think Roman has showed up on Raw once since WrestleMania. So I think pulling the trigger there by if they had only made it for the WWE title, the Raw version, and then Riddle could have won. But instead, Riddle lost that match and then lost Monday again. Riddle had a chance to go in Money in the Bank and lost to Omos. So I'm sure you can come back from that, but again, WWE isn't interested in making stars. They went, and it's just idiotic. I get it. They lost. They had so many people that, The Rock, they made a star, and he turned his back and went to Hollywood. And then they made Brock Lesnar a star by having him beat everybody in a year, and then he left to go try and join the NFL and eventually the UFC. And both of those guys have come back, and both of those guys have um, the Rock spread the word of the WWE and how great the WWE all the way from Hollywood all the way till now. And Brock Lesnar was able to show that a WWE guy could come in the UFC and win the world heavyweight title. So both of those guys ended up doing amazing things as far as giving WWE. It made it look like, oh yeah, WWE guys, they could become big time Hollywood actors like The Rock, or they could go over the UFC and fight for real and be like Brock Lesnar. Is there any better freaking publicity than that? But nope, Vince McMahon does not want any more stars after those two abandoned him, and among other people that abandoned him throughout the careers. But those were like the final straws. He ended up going with with Cena, who seemingly was never going to leave. So he went with the guy who Cena was chosen because he was the guy that Vince thought wouldn't would be the least likely to leave. As far as um, John Cena was never going to win a real fight in UFC, and I can't believe that he's now having success in Hollywood because I thought his promos and acting was always terrible and fake looking, but to each their own. If I hope Cena never comes back. Unfortunately, Cena will be back this Monday night, and the rumors are that Cena will also be at the SummerSlam Stadium show in a match against Theories, which Theory better win that match, man. I'm telling you. But yeah, WWE in a little bit of a trouble between all the Vince mess and having to take Money in the Bank from a stadium show to a smaller arena and stuff like that. And we could say they're in a mess, but in reality, they've just gotten, like I said, just from the Fox and Peacock deal in the last couple of years alone is $2 million on the books right there. So spending a couple million to get Brock Lesnar to do a match here and there, or a couple million for an NDA here and there, isn't even pocket change at that point. And like I said, they don't really need people to even show up at the arena anymore, and they're not by the droves. On the other flip side, let's take it back to AEW. Now that we were talking about ratings a little bit, not really ratings, but that was part of what I was just talking about. Last week, AEW suffered some of their lowest ratings in a long time and some of the lowest ratings in Rampage's history. And that was with, I think it was like 750,000 people watched Dynamite, which was down 19% from the week before that. And then last week's Rampage was down like 20%, 30%, down to like 200, 300,000 people, which was a terrible number for Rampage. Now, I do preview Dynamite every week, and on that preview show, I give all the news and stuff. So I talked about this at length on there, but I will go over it again. But definitely go check out if you're an AEW fan. I try to get those out a few hours out before Dynamite every week, and I go through the entire review and recap of Hey EW with RJ City, Being the Elite BTE, Elevation and Dark, and then I mentioned if there's any good promos on the Control. So all the YouTube stuff, all the 5 different YouTube shows that I watch on every Wednesday before Dynamite, I review those, give my preview of Dynamite, and then any news for AEW for the week. So if you're an AEW fan, make sure to check out those preview shows every week. I'm hoping to build a nice community where we can all hang out, and I'll make those preview shows even closer to when Dynamite starts once we get some people hanging out beforehand, and we can make it a pre-show and stuff like that. So, but anyway, those ratings, as I said on the on that preview show, that I thought it was many factors, but you could look at it as, of course, CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, and MJF have all been off TV for almost a month now, and this is about last week's. So now we've had Bryan Danielson on this week at least, but we also had all these New Japan guys coming with a lot of new information, and IWGP that, and NJPW that, and what faction is this guy in? United Empire, what's that? Is this guy in United Empire? Who's that? And then like you get Okada, is like, is he a big deal or is he just a regular guy? And then you see like Shota Umino later on. It's just like so much information for these guys that if fans of AEW, that if they're not New Japan fans, might be thinking to themselves, oh well, I'm kind of like overloaded with information here, and I know most of the storylines are kind of stopped, so we can do this New Japan stuff. So I'll come back and watch AEW for Blood and Guts once the Forbidden Door is over, which is totally fine if that's the way you want to do things. But that made me believe that um it was nothing to worry about, and that AEW ratings were probably going to be down for this week's, the one that just happened, but they'll be back up for Blood and Guts. And I was wrong about at least the first part of that. The After going down 19% the previous week, then this week it went up 15% back to almost 900,000 people. So I was wrong on that. A lot of people did tune in last week. We'll see if Rampage has a bad number or not. But yeah, nothing to worry about for AEW fans. Nowhere close to like cancellation type mode or anything like that. But I definitely do think they need to do something with Rampage. In my opinion, I know a lot of people would say, well, that's a death sentence to Rampage. But in my opinion, Rampage is already hanging on by a lifeline because everybody already treats it like nothing's really going to happen. It's not live. I can read about it on Wednesday and not have to watch it Friday and stuff like that. So I think what they need to do is just make Rampage an all women's show. Sure, it's not going to get very good ratings, especially at the beginning. It's going to drop to like 100,000, maybe less. Just if they can tell TNT, just give me a little bit of time to try and make this thing grow, and you can maybe hire like 3 or 4 more women, and you could actually have a real women's roster where they have a weekly 1-hour television show called Rampage, or you could rename it whatever, Heels. I know they kind of already branded that um in the day, but I know everyone will basically say, "Oh, that's the worst idea ever," because there's so many people that really don't care about. There are a lot of wrestling fans that care about wrestling, but don't give one crap about women's wrestling, and especially the older they are, the more they don't care about women's wrestling at all. If I like a lot of the things Jim Cornette says, but anytime Jim Cornette has to talk about women's wrestling, you can just hear in his voice that he's disgusted by the fact that the women are even in the ring. I don't think it's necessarily they should be in the kitchen type deal, but it does happen with other sports as well, especially again with the older generation where they don't feel comfortable watching women playing sports or doing physical activities, or in this case, fighting each other, which if they didn't even like them playing basketball against each other, they definitely don't like them wrestling against each other. I'm definitely not one of these people. I love women's wrestling. I fell in love with it with the Sasha Banks and Bailey Brooklyn match in NXT. And like I said, I wish I had time to watch Stardom. And if I was to add one major company to my list, it would be Stardom. But I think it's going to drop to maybe even 70,000 people if you make it a 1-hour women's show. But if you just build it and build it and build it, and you really if you gain people's trust, there are a ton of people out there that love and adore women's wrestling. And if you can just get them to prove to them that this is a 1-hour show worth watching, where you get some of the best women's wrestling of the week on this show, I think the numbers will steadily continue to grow and grow and grow. And then some of the wrestling fans that weren't interested might start hearing the buzz and start getting the fear of missing out and they'll start watching. And now all of a sudden we can at least get back up to where we're at right now. And instead of looking like Rampage could be canceled or tank any week, it then has growth and looks like it could become a real thing. And we can go from there. Who knows what could happen in the future? Maybe it morphs into a 2-hour live weekly show all about women. And who knows? But I think that's something they should try. I think Tony Khan should risk it. He should talk with the TNT executives and say exactly what I said right there. Where, like, right now, I don't think there's really anything we can do with Rampage unless we make it an hour long, unless we make it a live show every single week. But logistically, we can't run Rampage at live every week. So here's what I think. Like, as if Tony Khan and the TNT brass and all those people really think about it, I think if you make Rampage an hour women's show, like I said, it's going to do terrible in the ratings at first, but if you can build the trust with all the women's wrestling fans there are in the world, you might have a winning formula. And I doubt we'll ever see that. And hopefully one of these days there will be a women's wrestling promotion that is on TV with a live weekly promotion. I think the AEW women deserve that. I watch Dark and Elevation every single week. The women are always on there doing great things. There's storylines, there's other stuff like that. But I know so many people complain about, oh, I'm not watching Dark and Dark Elevation. It's a bunch of squash matches. I'm not watching it. It's a YouTube show. Who cares? A YouTube show just means it's even easier to access than it's easier to get Dynamite and Elevation than it is Dark and Elevation than it is Dynamite and Rampage. So I don't see the excuse on that. All you need is on my TV and on my PlayStation, I can watch YouTube on my big screen TV, which I do all the time. So that's not an excuse either. You should, and at the very least, your phone is probably connected to your smart TV. So that's no excuse to not have YouTube shows. And like I said, if you just don't want to watch them, but you are a little bit interested in what happens on them, make sure you watch my Dynamite preview every Wednesday. I also review Dark and Dark Elevation. So let's just talk a little bit about the other stuff I've been watching. The other companies. I put out my first ever MLW Major League Wrestling review earlier today, and I made sure to watch like 3 or 4 episodes before that, and then I researched heavily everything that I was watching so that um, and I even said in the review, like, oh, this is my first time reviewing this, and I haven't been watching for very long and stuff like that. But it was really, really cool. Make sure to go if you've never watched MLW. You can also find that for free on YouTube. I would suggest going to watch the episode that just happened, or the one from the week before as well. We got the first ever featherweight. They call it the MLW Featherweight Championship. That is their women's championship. I like the fact that they call it featherweight instead of women's, so it fits with the other scheme that they got. They've also got open weight, heavyweight, middleweight, and now featherweight. And the featherweight is for the women. It'll be interesting to see if there's they do have some of the mini wrestlers on little guys on the roster as well. So maybe maybe they're gonna fight in the featherweight division as well. I don't know. But I like that it's not have the word women in front of it. I did the same on my another thing you can find on this channel are a bunch of WWE 2K22 streams where I do universe mode. Right now I'm on year 2, so I'm in 2023 of uh, SmackDown, Raw, and NXT. Probably one of the biggest, deepest NXT rosters you'll find in the entire world. I've got all the Performance Center people like Bryson Montana, Sol Rucka, Miles Bourne just made his debut on Level Up last week. I had already had him just from seeing his picture at the live event. Oh, speaking of live event, NXT will be back on the road tonight in Jacksonville. If you're in the Jacksonville area, make sure you go check those out. Those NXT 2.0 live shows look pretty good. They had their first 2 a couple weeks ago. They look like smash hits. They did a lot of storyline stuff as well as including like promos and mystery wrestlers here and like Von Wagner coming out to beat people up and stuff like that. So if you enjoy the NXT 2.0 shows and you're in the Jacksonville area, go check that out tonight. They're also in another one of those small cities in a smaller city than Jacksonville in Florida tomorrow night as well. I forget which city. But yeah, MLW, like I was saying, they've been doing some great stuff. Taya Valkyrie won the first ever featherweight title, which makes her now the champion in AAA, the champion in MLW. She's got a Knockouts tag title. She just won it at Slammiversary last week. Again, if you missed Slammiversary, I've got a great in-depth Slammiversary review up on the channel, so go check that out. That happened on Sunday. But yeah, Taya Valkyrie just winning titles all over the world. She even recently joined NWA, where she looks like she wants a piece of Camille's title. So all kinds of titles for Taya Valkyrie. All right. But yeah, MLW, go check that out. In a month's time, they've got the big Battle Riot 40-man Battle Royal. The winner of that gets a title shot at any point during the year. The current champion, Alex Hammerstone, who's been tearing it up all over the indies, including MLW, has been the champion since last October. And he won last year's Battle Riot to get that title shot. So I just got to go to the bathroom real quick because I do want to talk about some other stuff. So instead of ending it right now, I'm just going to go to the bathroom. All right, sorry about that. But yeah, MLW, go check that out. The Battle Riot will be in about a month's time on their Fusion. You can find it on the MLW Major League Wrestling YouTube channel. 1 second. So again, another free weekly 1 hour show you can find on YouTube, and it's great fun. There's a lot of people you'll recognize, and they've also on July 14th, it'll be the MLW world title, Alex Hammerstone versus Holiday, who was his former partner. And this guy Holiday is really good at promos, so he might win this. He's really good at promos, has a good look, good wrestler, and recently pinned Hammerstone for the first time in 3 years in a 6-man tag match. Of course, cheated in that match, but doesn't mean he might not get the win again. But yeah, we also saw a Weapons of Mass Destruction match, the first ever in MLW. It included throwing of anthrax, quote unquote anthrax. Of course, it wasn't the real thing, but anthrax was thrown, and then it ended with a mysterious box. Basically, I don't think we're ever going to see this character ever again on MLW. So go check that out. That was on the episode that was released last night. Also yesterday, spoiler alert for anybody that hasn't watched NXT UK yet, so I'm going to talk about that. But like I said earlier, Ashton Smith and Oliver Carter, the new champs from only 3 weeks ago, which of course led to the breakup of Mustache Mountain. If you didn't hear that, that's the biggest story in NXT UK right now. Shades of the Gargano and Ciampa feud, with the added element of Trent Seven kind of doing all this because he's 15 years older than his tag partner and was getting desperate to retain the title. He keeps thinking if he loses the title, he's going to lose his job because he's 40 years old and in NXT. And there's some legitimate, that's a legitimate like story to think about. Like 40 years old in NXT might be getting kicked out eventually. So, great stuff with that, they lost the titles to Ashton Smith and Oliver Carter, who never once got to retain them before having to relinquish them. And unfortunately, Ashton Smith suffered an MCL injury. So the injury bugs are just all around wrestling right now. And that led to eventually a 4-way match where out of nowhere, NXT 2.0's in their first ever NXT UK match wins the NXT UK tag team titles. Brooks Jensen and Josh Briggs, the kind of comedy act tag team more so. This was the best match I've ever seen them. Like I said, they're usually a comedy act, but they just wrestled like as if they were the next version of APA in this match and ended up winning. So we've got new NXT UK tag champs. It is Brooks and Briggs and Jensen, and that was a shocker. We've also got Saray over. So we got a lot of people from NXT 2.0 over on the NXT UK. So if you've been sleeping on the NXT UK product, definitely don't sleep on it. Another only hour a week. And you can find that on Peacock in America and WWE Network anywhere else than America. So NXT UK has just been killing it. Don't sleep on it. NXT 2.0, they're not too bad. They've got some stuff coming up. Apollo Crews recently returned to NXT, and now he's been for 2 weeks running this weird storyline where like he's in these film noir type, almost black and white looking mini movies where seemingly Apollo Crews either has the ability to time travel, the ability to look into the future, or just a really, really vivid, like daydreaming imagination where he can. So, what keeps happening is Apollo Crews will um, be in these situations where there's danger, and then you'll see him like acting like a superhero, like saving them, basically, the people in trouble. And then you'll go back to like then you'll just go back like 10 seconds in time or whatever before he goes and stops them, and then he goes and stops them. So I don't know if it's time travel. It more so looks like Apollo Crews now has a really vivid imagination where he can daydream into the future. And this is why a lot of people are like, Triple H, please come back to NXT and make it black and gold. But something like this, I mean, it just makes me intrigued. It doesn't offend me whatsoever and stuff like that. So some people were, speaking of offended, some people were offended from the alleged behavior that was caught in the speaking out movement. Jordan Devlin is now on his way to NXT 2.0. He's been renamed JD McDonough, not Madonna like the singer, and not like old McDonald, McDonough. And of course, JD being an acronym for his original name, his real name, Jordan Devlin. So of course, since it's his real name, he does no longer gets to use it. And like I said, was alleged in the Me Too movement, the speaking out movement, and a lot of people not a big fan of him. I say it week after week. I say it on almost every review I have to cover. I have the ability to watch a wrestling show and just the character I see in front of me as the wrestler is the wrestler. And the example I use is I can go watch a Chris Benoit match right now and still say it was a good match, but then I could also still say that Chris Benoit was a terrible human being who did terrible things and should never be in like the Hall of Fame or anything like that. So um the former Jordan Devlin, now JD McDonough, is a good wrestler, trained by Finn Balor. His inspiration is Shawn Michaels, who he'll be working with hand in hand. He is the longest reigning cruiserweight champion from the purple strap era. So this should be good. He's not like he's kind of has sizes working against him, but a really good wrestler, good at promos. And we'll see where this goes with the JD McDonough character. But I could definitely see him challenging for the North American title pretty soon. Speaking of the North American title, how many times did we have to hear Solo Sikoa say "I got next" and then he still hasn't gotten next? So it'll be interesting to see when Solo Sikoa gets a title shot. Of course, this last week on NXT 2.0, Tony D'Angelo got a title shot, and Santos Escobar ended up screwing him over, even though Santos Escobar lost the match at In Your House to have all of Legado del Fantasma join the Tony D'Angelo Mafia family. So we got drama there. It looks like Santos Escobar wants to get Legado del Fantasma out of the family. And one thing that is definitely you can look forward to in next NXT is these last two were taped, and 2 weeks ago, Troy Two Stacks Donovan was actually fired from NXT 2.0. Now, what we were told is that he had failed or he did something against company policy, but they also noted that in a year they might take him back. So in the meantime, he has been released. He has been fired. That's two dimes, Troy Donovan from the Tony D'Angelo Mafia family. and he was fired 2 weeks ago. But unfortunately for NXT, they had already taped 2 weeks worth of episodes that featured him heavily. So these last 2 weeks are now over with. Next week will be live, and like I said, it might start with Triple H coming out and making everything black and gold. So we don't know what's going to happen, but with the whole True Dimes Donovan getting released now, it's perfect for a Mafia versus Cartel storyline where they can basically assume that Two Dimes is now sleeping with the fishes and it was all Santos Escobar's fault, and now there'll be it'll reunite the turf war. So we'll see where Tony D'Angelo goes from here. Maybe he'll have to recruit another person to his cause. Hopefully it's not Giovanni Vinci. That would be terrible. Because I like what they've been doing with Giovanni Vinci. I loved his new entrance. I heard a lot of people didn't like Giovanni Vinci's entrance, and sure, it's a little cheesy, but I thought it was hilarious. I laughed out. I literally laughed out loud for about 30 seconds on the Giovanni Vinci entrance from like 2 weeks ago. Make sure you go watch that if you haven't seen. And if you have no clue who Giovanni Vinci is, Fabian Eichner was also Fabian Eichner's real name. So he needed a new name. He didn't get called up with the rest of his Imperium brethren, who were also renamed Gunther and Ludwig Kaiser. So now Giovanni Vinci, the third member of that crew, was left in NXT and rebranded as a aristocratic rich guy from Italy. I could definitely see Giovanni Vinci potentially being part of the former LA Knight, now Max Dupree, and he's running Maximum Male Models on SmackDown. So for 2 weeks, we've been teased on SmackDown that Max Dupree was going to debut his first ever client in the Maximum Male Models. And the first week, we were told Max Dupree was stuck on a flight in Milan, Italy, which again could be him trying to get Giovanni Vinci. Oh man, could you imagine if it's this week though? Because again, they've teased that that Max Dupree is going to unveil his latest client. Can you imagine if it's Cesaro tonight? And all of a sudden, everybody's top guess for the person to fight Zack Sabre Jr. is back in WWE. Because if you remember, a couple of weeks ago, there was reports that came out that Cesaro and WWE were potentially in talks to bring Cesaro back. It wasn't that long ago. Cesaro was, I think he was released from his contract, but I think maybe it was just his contract ran up. WWE offered him a new deal, and Cesaro declined. And I'm pretty sure that's what happened. But which makes me think if Cesaro did want to go back to WWE and WWE did want Cesaro back, they could probably agree on a price. And people were thinking immediately, oh, maybe it's Cesaro that's going to join the Maximum Male Models. That's probably either a lateral or a downgrade from Cesaro from where he was even before. If you remember, even though Cesaro didn't have much of a character or storylines going on, he at least had a really good match against Roman Reigns um, last year for the title. So we'll see where that goes. But yeah, that would be pretty crazy if it's Cesaro that comes out on Friday tonight. And now our top pick for Sunday's Forbidden Door match is now gone. It would immediately make everybody think it's Johnny Gargano instead. But yeah, I really can't wait to see because I can't wait to see who Zack Sabre Jr. fights more than anything. I don't really care about who's there for the blood and guts match, but then it's also really intriguing that whoever it is also going to be in Blackpool Combat Club. So number one is the fact that they're going to be fighting. In my mind, number one is the fact that they'll be fighting Zack Sabre Jr. Number two is that they'll be in Blackpool Combat Club, and then three will be for the blood and guts. I don't care about that part as much, although I am looking forward to that match. I just don't care who the mystery man is for that, because there's just going to be so many other pieces and parts going on. But another, if it is Cesaro, don't forget there's the I think it's fake storyline or kayfabe, but Eddie Kingston and Cesaro seemingly have a little bit of beef, which would make it perfect for Bryan Danielson to make Cesaro his choice, because he knows Cesaro would be completely on Bryan's side in case in Bryan's. So you got to think of it as if wrestling's real, because that's how everything's supposed to be thought of, like when you're writing shit out and making storylines. But Bryan Danielson like knows that John Moxley and Kingston are best friends. He knows that Kingston hates Bryan. Bryan hates Kingston. So if it came down to it, potentially Jon Moxley might side with Kingston over Bryan if it came down to it. So adding a Cesaro into the Blackpool Combat Club, where Cesaro is going to be against anything to do with Kingston, makes perfect sense. So I'm thinking it's definitely going to be Cesaro for the multitude of reasons. But man, if Cesaro comes out on SmackDown tonight, my mouth will drop and stay agape for a while in shock. But yeah, also I've been watching NWA National Wrestling Alliance a lot lately. And again, they've got a about 45-minute show called Powerrr every week, and they've also got a half-hour show called USA every week. And I think on YouTube they come out Friday and Saturday, Powerrr on Friday and USA on Saturday. So definitely go check those out. They have a pay-per-view every 2 months, and we just finished their last pay-per-view like I was telling you earlier. It was the Always Ready quote with former Zack Ryder, now Matt Cardona, color scheme and logos plastered all over it, and he's on the front of the cover of the poster, and he got injured before he could wrestle in the main event and defend his NWA title. But that ended up being a really good pay-per-view. I was glad I ordered it, and I reviewed that as well. You can find the review here on the channel. But NWA doing really good things. The thing about NWA, they have a true heavyweight division. You can almost call it a super heavyweight division. They got people as big as like Tyrus, the Funkasaurus, but they've also got other guys that are close to Tyrus' size. And then they've got like big muscle guys like the Masterpiece, Chris Masters, and Tom Lattimore, the formerly known as Bram, along with Nick Aldis is the one formerly known as Magnus, who basically resurrected the NWA 5 years ago alongside owner and funder and financial backer Billy Corgan of the Smashing Pumpkins, who went straight from being the financial backer in Impact Wrestling, and when he lost that to job, he went right over to the NWA. And Magnus, aka Nick Aldis, has been tearing down the place with great matches, and those two help resurrect the NWA name to the point where they're having pretty good pay-per-views and television shows now. So definitely go check those out. They've also got a really good junior heavyweight division. Homicide's been killing it in junior heavyweight division. They also got Steve Corino's son, Colby Corino, playing a massive dick heel. Those words probably shouldn't be put together, but you know what I mean. A really cocky heel, which almost sounds as bad. Let's just move on. But NWA, like I said, a true super heavyweight division, and then they've also got Camille, who's almost similar to Charlotte in size and stature, and then she's got a bunch of bigger, taller women to fight against, and so NWA with a lot of big guys. Oh, hey Kimberly, thanks for tuning in. Yeah, I've been talking about so many things, but right now I'm on National Wrestling Alliance, and I don't know if you've ever seen them, but they got a true heavyweight division, a ton of guys that are like 280 pounds plus, and then they've also seemingly got like um I don't know what you would call it, but a heavyweight women's division where they're all like 6 foot and above and muscular as well. So if you're into your big guy and big gal matches, NWA is definitely for you. You can find them for free on YouTube, Powerrr and USA every week. And then Major League Wrestling, I just got into MLW. Really love that. That's also on YouTube. So you can find on my channel reviews for all these shows, but of course I do Raw, SmackDown, NXT Level Up, NXT UK, as well as all of the AEW stuff and New Japan shows as well. So all kinds of stuff, and Impact, that Slammiversary. I didn't talk about Slammiversary too much yet, but really well watched. It was worth a watch for sure for anybody that was an old TNA fan. I started watching TNA in 2004, March of 2004, because I can remember the exact show I watched. But of course, on that show, I watched AJ Styles for the first time, fell in love with him, fell in love with TNA because of him. I bailed TNA when Hulk Hogan came in. I lasted one episode, and I bailed when I saw Hulk Hogan and crew come in, and basically we're going to turn it into WCW, which was terrible back in like 2000. So I love WCW in 97, 98, maybe some in 99, but by 2000 it was terrible. And TNA in 2010 was turning into 2000 WCW. I was out. So I came back a little bit later. AJ Styles was already gone. That was disappointing, but that's when I became like a New Japan fan, so I was able to go watch AJ Styles over in New Japan, and now, all the stuff on NJPW World, the streaming service for New Japan, is really well streamlined for American users or English speakers such as myself. They've got every single big show and like half of the small shows. They've got English commentary in the live in the building, so there's no excuse not to get into New Japan Pro Wrestling if you love wrestling. The one thing I wish I had time to fit in with all this other stuff is Stardom. I believe that Stardom, which is a Japanese women's wrestling promotion, also has English commentary on their streaming service. I just can't fit it in with all the extra stuff I'm doing, like MLW, NWA. But man, if I find a little bit of extra time and money, because I don't know how much it is, but just another streaming service I'd have to add on top of everything. Stardom looks amazing. A lot of the women's wrestlers like Tony Storm, Jamie Hayter, people like that all came through Stardom. And I could definitely see Sasha Banks potentially going there for a little bit. I don't think full time, but Sasha Banks loves Japanese wrestling, and I could see her going over the Stardom. But what I really want Sasha to do is start her own women's wrestling company in America, and find maybe a deal with a random network, maybe like BET of all people or something like that. So can you imagine like a BET women's wrestling promotion ran by Sasha Banks and starring Sasha Banks? That would be amazing. But let's see. I mean, I don't got too much else to talk about. We kind of already went through Forbidden Door. I'm really looking forward to that. I don't think there's much planned for SmackDown other than we got a couple of qualifying matches. It's going to be Sami Zayn taking on, I think, Shinsuke Nakamura. Yeah, for sure. It's Sami Zayn versus Shinsuke for the Money in the Bank qualifier. Whew, it would be tough if Shinsuke doesn't win that one, but I think Sami will probably find a way to win. I could definitely see that happening, which would be tough on Shinsuke. Shinsuke just can't catch a break. But yeah, Sammy having a money. Imagine Sammy winning the briefcase, and now Roman really wants him as part of the bloodline to keep him close. That would be a good story, but I'm pretty sure it'll be Seth Rollins that wins the briefcase. So we've also got Shotzi versus Aaliyah tonight, and like I said earlier, Shotzi has to win that match. She specializes in hardcore weapons matches and ladder matches where she can do big dives and get hit with weapons and stuff. She's a badass when it comes to that kind of stuff. Um, but yes, Slammiversary, definitely check that out. My match of the week almost happened at Slammiversary. It almost happened at Slammiversary, and it was the first ever Queen of the Mountain match. Probably my second favorite match of the entire week, going back to last Friday morning when I did the Wonderful Wrestling podcast. And my match of the week, my second place match of the week, is that Queen of the Mountains match. It was amazing. That featured Tasha Steelz coming in as champion and Jordan Grace leaving as champion, who she really deserves it. She's been putting in the work. She looks like she's built out of granite, like a statue. She's so muscular now and really put in the work to make her body great. Her wrestling and promos have also been improving along the way. She's focused. So I like the title change there. Also in that match were Chelsea Green and Deonna Purrazzo, who took, you might have seen it online, a 20-foot fall off a ladder through some tables, almost hit their heads on the barricade, but they were able to get through it safe. They were on Impact the next week, or the next, I think it was taped even the next night or two after. So they were on Impact. Chelsea wrestled. Deonna was on commentary. Neither were limping too bad. So they took a 20-foot fall off a ladder in a climactic spot in that match and were able to survive no problem. So props to them. Also in that match, Mia Yim, who's been doing some good things. I thought Mia Yim would probably win that match. She's got a really great entrance that features like people in different masks doing dances and stuff like that. So looks like a little bit of looks like the knockouts division is getting good, really, really good again. I know they had a little bit of lull there sometimes, but they've got a really deep roster now, including new tag team champions in the knockouts division, Taya Valkyrie and Rosemary, and they won that from the influencers who in a nasty move, they both got double speared and hit each other back of the heads on each other. I don't know if they were planning on doing it or maybe they even worked me and it wasn't as hard as it seemed because they did bring it up in the storyline on Impact. But that could just be because it was an accident and now they're making it a storyline. So we'll never truly know, but I've never seen that before where um Rosemary and Taya were both in a corner and both charged and did a spear at each one of the influencers who were standing almost back to back with each other. And then when their heads snapped back and they fell back to take the back bump on the spear, they hit each other's heads, and that looked nasty. So maybe I got worked, but maybe they were also potentially concussed on that one, more so than the actual 20-foot fall from the ladder in the other knockouts match. But yeah, the knockouts division doing great things. Another great match and another good champion, new champion to see was the Ultimate X match. The guys really threw it down in that one, and I think they made the right decision despite them being a lot of big names in this match. Speedball Mike Bailey, I think, is one of the most improved wrestlers in the world and one of the best wrestlers, period, this year. So Speedball Mike Bailey won the X Division title at Slammiversary, and I love that. That was a great match as well. The main event wasn't too great, but it did feature all the best signature moves and finishers in the 20 years of TNA wrestling. This whole night was this whole Slammiversary and the 20th anniversary of TNA's founding was or their first show, I mean, was a whole big long tribute night. So to end it with a match between Josh Alexander and Eric Young, where Josh Alexander retained, and we got to see like all the best moves: the BME, the Uranagi from Joe in the corner, the best moonsault ever. I said that already. We got a Styles clash at one point, so all the best moves from all the biggest players in TNA history. We also AJ Styles did send in a video message where he was like, "Oh, thank you WWE for allowing me to send this video in." Like, it's not like they let you go wrestle. Come on, the gracious WWE. But I guess they could have said no. But they did have a favor coming to them for getting Mickey James to come in the Rumble. So I was maybe expecting that it could be someone as big as AJ Styles or maybe even a Bobby Roode who barely ever gets on Raw. So what does WWE going to miss for a one night of Bobby Roode? Even if he gets injured, they won't miss him. But no Bobby Roode. It's Davey Richards instead. So who's been making a name for himself lately in MLW, or not making a name for himself, but plying his craft. But yeah, that was a big letdown as far as it could have been Samoa Joe, Fallen Angel, Christopher Daniels, who neither of them made an appearance, which made me think even though Kazarian was on the card, he was the only person from AEW to appear on the Slammiversary card. And that kind of tells me that maybe that AEW and TNA, or I mean Impact partnership is like hanging on by a thread at this point. It's not very friendly. I think somebody along the way was offended or with something happened with the whole Kenny Omega being Impact champion and then losing the title to Christian Cage and stuff like that. So somewhere along that way, I think relationships frayed, and not to the point where Kaz couldn't even show up, but it, I thought it was a little ridiculous that we didn't see an in-ring appearance by either Sting or Christopher Daniels or Samoa Joe, all of which are AEW contracted. But Sting did send in a video message, and so did Kurt Angle. So it was good to see them. They also Impact made a really good choice to um, really appreciate Mike Tenay and Don West. If you don't know, Don West is currently fighting for his life with lymphoma. You can look online. There is donations for Don West and his fight against lymphoma. But it was good to really underrated commentary team, Don West and Mike Tenay. Mike Tenay, the professor, the dry, just going to give you stats. This guy wrestled for 3 years as Abismo Negro in Mexico, and now he's known as Mr. Aguila, and he wrestled in Dragon Gate USA for 3 years, like that kind of guy. And then with him is, oh, can you believe it, Mike? He's just crazy, and I've never seen anything like that. And oh, look at that. And so you got crazy talking Don West with the stoic fact machine Mike Tenay, and it was just a winning combination that really doesn't get talked about enough. So they got a little 1 minute long tribute video, not tribute because neither of them have passed, but like I said, Don West is fighting for his life currently. So if you got any money, definitely go help him out. Other than that, Slammiversary gets a thumb up from me, and you can go check out my review of that as well as last night's Impact. Uh, Impact's next big event is only a week from tonight, and it'll be against all odds. They've already mentioned that the main event will be Joe Doring. If you don't know, he's been big in Japan before. Now he's come over and joined Eric Young's Violent by Design faction. So Eric Young just failed in his bid against Josh Alexander for the title. Now his protege, Joe Doring, who's much bigger and much stronger and younger than Eric Young, has a chance. So potentially we could see Joe Doring win the title. I wouldn't assume that it would happen on a smaller pay-per-view, but you never know. It would be more likely to happen on regular Impact than one of these. It's not even a pay-per-view. It's like a special event that's streaming on the Impact Plus streaming service. So that'll be next week. I'll also cover that one. I'll review that one as well. And yeah, NXT 2.0 should be good. We've got NXT Level Up tonight, so that's already a taped episode. We do get to see the return of Ru Fang, who we have not seen in all of 2022. I think it's been 8 or 9 months since we've seen either Ru Fang or Boa, both of them being from China. But neither of them were released or anything like that. When that you would have thought if they didn't have any plans for them that they would have got released with along with like Dexter Loomis and some of the other people that recently got released from NXT. Speaking of which, just before those whole releases at NXT happened, um, Kushida asked for his release and was granted by NXT, and Kushida made his return to New Japan Pro Wrestling this Tuesday morning when I was watching New Japan Road. So you can find that review on the channel as well. But I freaked out. We had just finished the Taiji Ishimori Hiromu Takahashi main event for the junior heavyweight title, and which was a great match, definitely up there in my top 10 of the week. And all of a sudden, Kushida's music hits. Wow. At a smaller show, too. This is one of those small shows. I bet I was only one of there couldn't have been more than a couple hundred people outside of Japan watching that live, and maybe only 1,000 or so in Japan. It was that small of a show. Maybe more than that. Maybe I'm selling them short, but still, um, Kushida making his big return there. That was pretty awesome to see. Glad he got out of NXT. He was just getting killed by Von Wagner last we saw Kushida. So get out of there while you can, and he did. But yeah, I'm excited to see Ru Fang on Level Up tonight. Maybe he'll come out with some new gear or a new gimmick or something like that, and maybe he'll have Boa as a manager. Maybe he'll come out with him. But I'll be here to report on that. So I what I do on Fridays is I watch Smackdown, then I watch NXT Level Up, and then I watch Rampage, and then I'll come on and do a separate review for all three. So it won't be like the Smackdown review won't be out right when Smackdown ends. It will be out somewhere around like 11:20. I'll then put the Smackdown review out, and then I'll put probably the NXT Level Up review, and then the Rampage review. So I like to put everything separate so that if somebody only likes SmackDown or if they only like Rampage, that's easy for them to find. And that's what I'm doing today. I think I've also got an NWA Power that comes out in a couple hours. So before SmackDown airs, I think I'll be back to cover that NWA Power. Again, those are only about 45 minutes long on YouTube for free. So definitely go check those out and then join me afterward, and I'll be here to review it. So looks like I'll just kind of cut it short at 2 hours today, which gives us just a little bit more time to think about anything else that we might have going on. Like I said, maybe I can check out Twitter and see what the latest news is, see if there's anything going on in the crazy world of like Vince McMahon might be gone and Triple H has been named the head writer of Raw. We have no idea what might have happened by now. So let me just bring up Twitter real quick. But yeah, thanks again for tuning in. Tell your friends about this channel. Please give me a subscribe, hit that thumbs up. Definitely trying to build something nice over here, and maybe we can get a community going once I get some people to start showing up. I'm gonna make all these shows live so we can. The thing is, like when a show ends, if it's a show you care about, we can all come over here, whether it be MLW or Raw. Like no matter how big or small, or if it's a New Japan show that doesn't end until 8 in the morning, then I'll be on at 8 in the morning. So that's the kind of thing I'm trying to do here. So let me search. Let's see. So we've got our Rampage. We've got all the matches announced for Rampage tonight, and one of the big ones that was already announced that I'm really looking forward to is Cash Wheeler versus Jeff Cobb. Of course, those are two competitors that'll be in the triple threat tag team match with FTR, United Empire, and Roppongi Vice. So that should be a good match. Of course, we've been seeing Dax Wilder in a bunch of singles matches, but we've only seen Cash in that one singles match against Dax. So it'll be cool to see him here against Jeff Cobb, who's amazing. If you guys remember from um, Lucha Underground, he was playing the masked Matanza Cueto, the crazy killer. Excuse me, the crazy killer brother of Dario Cueto. Also tonight is two people that were banned from the Forbidden Door, so you know they're gonna throw it down tonight as if it was their Forbidden Door match, and that is Andrade El Idolo versus Ray Phoenix. They've got a little bit of history, recent history when Andre El Idolo low blowed Ray Phoenix to eliminate him from the Battle Royal a couple weeks ago. We've got Serena Deeb and Mercedes Martinez. Looks like they're going to have a tag team match. If you're not a follower of Dark and Dark Elevation, for the last 2 weeks, they've had 3 matches out of those dark shows. So 3 matches in 2 weeks. So this is going to be a fourth match in like less than 21 days in like a 18-day span. So Serena Deeb and Mercedes Martinez is really getting pushed as this tag team. But I'm pretty sure the whole story is the story they've been running is they've been destroying everyone they face, but they tried this one-up thing where they one-up each other. So I think eventually this leads to Serena Deeb getting not only a shot at Mercedes Martinez ROH Women's title, but winning the ROH Women's title. So I think eventually we're going to see pretty soon here Serena Deeb winning the ROH title. So Deeb and Martinez are going to be in action tonight against probably some jobbers. They're not even telling us who. And then the other match that was already announced, the DKC, who was part of the pre-show at Forbidden Door and part of the team that's all the LA Dojo members from New Japan. So the DKC will make his AEW debut and fight Hook. Of course, Rampage being Hook's show. So that was cool. We got to find that. Let's see what else we got going on. Good shot of ROH, or FTR holding all the gold. So that's potentially something we might get. But yeah, it looks like that's about it. I'm gonna get going, and I didn't see much. Let me just type in Smackdown and see if there's any news. Yeah, Forbidden Door is this Sunday. I'll also be here right as Forbidden Door ends. I can't wait for that card. It's Adam Pearce's birthday today. Russell Pierce is reporting that Stephanie McMahon being put in WWE Powerrr is said to be based on a decision of a special committee. 8 members of the board that were not the McMahons, Nick Khan, or Triple H. Wow. So uh, if you go by that news, that says that the board put Stephanie McMahon in charge and not Vince McMahon. But still, that doesn't change what I thought earlier, which was I'm pretty sure Stephanie's just gonna have to do whatever Vince tells her to do, unless she just wants to be completely estranged from her father. If she goes against Vince McMahon's word and goes against Vince McMahon, he will never talk to her again. Oh well, maybe we'll see Brock tonight. You never know. It says tomorrow before SmackDown, get ready for a John Cena tribute you won't want to miss. So hopefully I'll miss that. And yeah, should be pretty good. See if we got any more matches announced for SmackDown. Oh yeah, and one thing I didn't mention was the great Elias segment. Elias and Ezekiel. And they played it really well. And by the end of it, they even had like KO was like, "Oh, you're just doing that with tricks." Like I even watched a movie over the weekend where there was dinosaurs in it. So you could do anything with like the magic of video effects. But then KO goes through the curtain where Elias was out in the ring, and now KO goes through the curtain and he runs into Ezekiel, which of course it was just taped from before, but now KO was able to explain all the magic of trickery of video before, but now with his own eyes, he sees like he just left Elias and now here's Ezekiel. So we got teased that there might be a third brother named Elrod next week, and it might be KO versus Elrod next week because KO just challenged any of the brothers, one of the brothers, um, either Ezekiel, Elias, or this mysteriously unnamed Elrod to a match next week on Raw. So it sounds worse than it was. It was actually pretty funny. I forget who put it best, but I think it was the Going in Raw. Steven Larson said, "Who would have guessed that WWE was the only people in the world that was able to pull off Seinfeld level of comedy when all the rest of their show is just junk?" Like pretty funny. But yeah, I don't think I told you my actual match of the year, or match of the week, so I'll end with that. My match of the week, just beating out the Queen of the Mountain match. There was also a really good prestige match between Konosuke Takeshita and Lee Moriarty. You can find that for free on YouTube, so go check that out. That was in my top 5. Of course, we had the great Dax versus oh wait, no, that was from the previous week, so that one wouldn't have counted. But my match of the week, it wasn't Roman versus Riddle. That match I didn't rate highly as everybody else. The commercial breaks killed it for me, and then in general, I think Roman Reigns is still overrated. But my match of the week was on Monday morning for me, New Japan Road, semifinals of the All Atlantic tournament, qualifying tournament to get into the 4-way, and it was Tomohiro Ishii versus Kanemaru. And definitely go find this match. This whole event from this night, it was from Monday, June 20th, is free on njpwworld.com. This whole event is free. There might be English commentary up by now, but I watched it in Japanese. So for the ones that don't have live commentary in English, they usually put up English commentary within the week. I can go check real quick and see if it's English to really hammer home that you need to go watch this. But yeah, my match of the week from the semifinals on Monday is Tomohiro Ishii, who unfortunately I think got injured in this match. That's how good this match was. It was very physical. Tomohiro Ishii versus Kanemaru, and a lot of people wouldn't probably haven't even seen this match. So if you're hearing me say this, and of course with the whole this event is free on njpwworld.com, definitely go check this match out. Yes, it is now in English as well, so you can watch this entire event for free in English. It is from Monday, June 20th, and if you only want to watch the final 3 matches, all 3 of the final 3 matches are pretty good, so just skip until you find the intermission, and then after the intermission are the 3 matches, and they're amazing. But the Ishii Kanemaru match from that night is my match of the week, so go check that out. And Queen of the Mountain match, a close second. Maybe the Lee Moriarty Takeshita match third. And I'll just keep it at that 3 for now. Maybe I'll try and make a list for next week, like a full list. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. I'm gonna get going, and like I said, I'll be back later with NWA Powerrr, NXT Level Up, WWE SmackDown, and AEW Rampage reviews. I'll probably take tomorrow off, but I might get up a WWE 2K22 stream at some point as well. I might do that today as well. And then Sunday, I'll for sure be here for Forbidden Door, AEW co-promoted with New Japan Pro Wrestling, Forbidden Door. So thanks for tuning in, guys. And if there's any suggestions you think that I need maybe work on, just let me know in the comment section and give me a thumbs up, please, as well. So I'll talk to you guys soon. Have a great weekend if I don't talk to you, and I'll talk to you again whenever. Peace.